So many changes, so little time. If you feel out of control, you're not alone. We're talking with Jenna Stoliker about steps you can take to regain control of your compounding change. Next.
This is the Compounding Change Podcast, sharing stories of small but meaningful changes that compound into amazing impact. Brought to you by Shannon Davis and DavisCompoundingChange.com. Change happens fast. Take advantage. Discussions on this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to DavisCompoundingChange.com or this podcast. Now, here's your host, Shannon Davis.
Welcome to Compounding Change, the podcast where small actions lead to big results, where we dive into real challenges, real change, and real ways to build a better future. If you're a firefighter or first responder, this episode's especially for you. Today we're talking about financial change, why it's so frustrating, why we resist it, and how to shift our mindset so we can make confident decisions about our financial future. My guest today is Jenna Stoliker, a leadership coach who helps professionals navigate change, build resilience, and lead with confidence. Jenna, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Shan. And I'm really excited about this conversation in particular because when I think about retirement and savings and all of those investment options, it can feel really frustrating and overwhelming. And I know it has been for myself too. And I can only imagine I'm not the only one who experiences that. But here's the thing, I think that's what we're going to talk about today is any of that stuff that feels overwhelming, we tend to resist, but resistance to change is really completely normal. And let's unpack some of that and figure out how to make it normal.
Right. Well, so again, specifically because of what I deal with the firefighters, I know that they've been frustrated. Those who I deal with have been frustrated with plan administrator changes, having a new financial planner, any any changes, the mutual fund changes within the plan. It's all unnerving, I think.
Yeah.
Why does this happen that there's such a pushback?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, right? And it's a frustration, I think, probably on both sides, right? Like you're going in and talking to people sometimes for the first time and you're having to build that trust. And meanwhile, on the other side of the table, they're looking at you thinking, why are you here? Why did things change? And so if we're thinking in terms of who are you talking with, right? Who are you bringing into your community? And I'm going to think about firefighters in particular. It's probably about how firefighters are wired. When you think about the work that they do, and this isn't to pick them out of the crowd and say, just look at this. But I think this also, pertains to many of like the first responders as well. But when I think about what a firefighter does in that kind of work environment, it's a high stakes environment, and predictability is really important because predictability saves lives. Mm-hmm. Right? They're going to rely on routine, on training. It's a muscle memory, right? So, and you do that so that you can react instantly under pressure. And when a system changes, and we're talking even like a financial plan that your plan administrator changes, or even if the plan administrator doesn't change, but maybe new options come into that plan, right? It's still a change. And money is a bit of what we need to feel protected and secure. So we kind of ball all of that together. And when something like that changes, it disrupts the sense of order. And when that happens, it feels like instability. And that instability naturally triggers resistance.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, I do see that when in conversation and in talking to first responders, firefighters specifically, any of my clients actually. But, I do find that people will often ask for help and they'll reach out to me, but then they either don't follow through. And I mean, this is people in general. So, like I said, not to just pick on the firefighters, right? But they ask for help. People and maybe this is a counseling session for me, right? What am I doing wrong with my clients? They ask for help, but they don't follow through, or they turn around and ask somebody else. And there's a big community in, the stations of asking their brothers and sisters financial advice, but that may not be right for them. But why do people fight people trying to help them, essentially? Or what am I doing wrong that people aren't
What do you,
listening? Right? That's a whole
well,
nother thing, right? Goes back to
it's,
childhood.
no, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think what it is there's a sense for all of us of we want to move through this world and navigate it in such a way that we don't do harm to ourselves and we don't do harm to other people, right? But naturally, we don't want to do harm to ourselves. And I think there's a few things here, and I said earlier, let's try and unpack some of that. I want to go back to something as you were kind of alluding to, like, so why do people resist somebody trying to help them? And I think there's something there underlying, like, about uncertainty, right? It's like when things change, right? You feel like that resistance, you're going to resist it, and that's natural. We resist it because there's a level of uncertainty. And when we want our world to feel much more safe, secure, predictable, that uncertainty is anything but predictable for us. And so I think about how people respond and what we know about just our general behaviors. When we're uncertain about things, we tend to go inward and say, that next step I could take, but what if it's wrong? I don't want to be wrong, right? So we're starting to uncover like this fear of, am I making the wrong decision? So I think what's also natural, and it's good, right? We go to our community, or the people that are closest to us that we trust, even if they don't have any experience in this, we feel comfortable being vulnerable to say, look, I don't know what's going on. Right. What do you think about this? So there's something about uncertainty there. But I also think when we think about, like, so why do people like kind of basically fight the person trying to help them? And we might see this with our own friends and family, but in general, like that notion. Okay, so I like to also use analogies because sometimes it helps me look at things a little differently. And what's coming to mind is when somebody is drowning and a lifeguard goes out to help them, right? What we've seen, well, maybe not like in real life, probably for first responders in real life, but we'll kind of see this play out in stories, is that person is drowning, a lifeguard swims out to save them, but in that person's panic, that drowning person fights the lifeguard, right? They thrash, they push away, they might even put that lifeguard at risk. And that's because, again, I go back to the neuroscience of how we deal with things. That's a high stress situation. And when we're in a high stress situation, our brain goes into survival mode. So the person panicking doesn't recognize that lifeguard's there to help them. They just see him as another force pulling him under. So let's apply that to financial change. Firefighters are going to ask for help, or anybody, again, not just singling out firefighters, but when we don't know what's happening, we're going to go ask for help. But the second that you as a financial planner give that expert advice, the brain of the person who is asking for help all of a sudden is like, I don't know, is this really help? Like, wait, does this mean I actually have to make a decision? Going back to, am I wrong? What's my underlying fear? What if I mess this up?
Right.
All right. It could feel like maybe there's like this inner dialogue that says, I don't feel in control right now. I don't like that. And especially I think about the work that it takes to save lives and the predictability and the training and that muscle memory. There is a sense of control that people have. And so if you're all of a sudden now in a different setting and you've been a bit vulnerable, and you kind of get this notion of like, oh, I don't think I'm in control. I don't like that. And when we don't like something, we naturally don't tend to go lean into it, right? We're going to pull back. So there's a variety of reasons for that. So honestly, Shannon, childhood, whatever or not, it's not about you or for any other financial planners.
It's not just me. It's not
just you, right? Well, I think it's our own fear. It's our own need for control that's at play many times.
Well, I think that that goes into one of my problems. Well, I don't really feel like I always procrastinate, but when you look at what you're putting off, it's the stuff that you don't necessarily know or that you think is going to take a long time. I know for a lot of my clients, to roll money over or to do any type of transfer, it's paperwork. Um, Call it control on my side, whatever it may be. I try to make that as simple as possible, but if there's any level of action that somebody needs to take, very often it's not taken because, but I know, I mean, we've talked about it, just ourselves with our work or with personal, and if you have to take that action, sometimes you need somebody there holding your hand to do it.
Yeah.
And I know that's what you do with your job, essentially, with working with
It's,
businesses or individuals, is kind of
yeah.
hand holding.
It's,
Do this step, right?
yeah. Well, I'll say it's hand holding because, and we say hand holding, I don't mean this in any sort of derogatory way, but when we're young, we want to go reach out for, I don't know, go across the road or just go
Mm-hmm.
play. We reach out with our hands and it's community, it's connection, it is a feeling of safety. So what we do, but for I think for the work that both of us do is we help people navigate through that uncertainty. And
Definitely.
does so we are the hand to reach out to, depending on what is happening. And we want to help you navigate that change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we've talked about and a lot of that's with mindset and fixed mindset and growth mindset. Um,
Mhm.
Hopefully, we're adopting more of a growth mindset, um,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something as big as retirement savings. How do you take action to switch that mindset?
Oh, good question, right? And because it's so much easier said than done, right? And when you think about switching or swapping your mindset out for something that's a little bit more action oriented, you really have to address some of your underlying fears. And so there's this, you talk about growth mindset or fixed mindset. And I also refer to it as there's a change cycle that
Mm,
happens. And if we understand partly what is happening when a situation presents itself that we see as a problem or a change, part of this is understanding what's happening in our brain. So then we can have a little bit more control or be a little more conscious of our actions around that. And so if we look at the change cycle as there's a problem or some sort of a change that I'm facing, I have two options in essence. I can look at it as a threat, right? I get defensive. Maybe I try to resist it. That's the fixed mindset that you were mentioning. The other option is to say, okay, so there's a change or there's a problem I'm facing. I wonder what else might be possible if I were to really address this, or what other potential opportunity is there in this situation right now, right? Could I learn something new? Could I be doing something different?
mm-hmm.
What's the benefit to it? So we start to move more into what is known as that growth mindset, right? That's where we see change as a really positive sort of challenge that we want to navigate, right? And that in and of itself, if we know that we have choice, we can choose to either resist it or to face it. That's where we start to overcome some of that fear, right? Now, fear and control do play a really big role in how we move through that cycle because that fear does kick in first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I talk so much about like just be more conscious of
Mm-hmm.
what your behavior is, what your thinking is, what's your mindset, because when that fear kicks in first, like a new retirement plan, or maybe the plan itself is kind of stable, but all of a sudden there are new options in that
Right.
plan. It still feels like a change, right? We want to say this is uncertain and I don't like uncertainty. Now, control is a reaction. And so to regain that control, we resist, we argue, we avoid making a decision. We avoid doing that paperwork. Again, going all the way back to, am I going to make a wrong decision? And
Yep.
there's my fear. So sometimes it's just kind of teasing all of that out, say, oh, this is why I'm hesitating taking action. So that shift is instead of focusing on what's changing, focus on what can you control. I can control. I can fill this new paperwork out. I am capable of that. Right? Okay, I can control that. I actually have somebody who will walk me through filling this out. I can control that. I can pick up the phone or send a message. Right? So focus on the stuff that you can control.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that goes into so much, so much else with life, right? It's kind of like staying with the devil that you know versus the
Mhm.
devil you don't. Whether any life changes, divorce, a new job, switching gears with that. So, I mean, sometimes we just stay with what we know, and so that goes into the whole mindset thing. So, very powerful. If somebody feels resistant to change with their finances or resistance to change in life, what's one question they should ask themselves?
Ooh. I mean, I think I would. mm, okay, here's what I would say: is am I fighting the change or am I resisting it? I mean, ask yourself that really basic question for
And
that
that
too.
goes across life.
Yeah, I mean, right for anything. Just what am I resisting? Why am I and do am I facing it or am I just truly resisting it? And that lends you to kind of tap into your own discernment, right? And it sometimes it's fine not to address something because you realize that it's not the opportunity for you, or that's just not maybe the lesson that you want to learn in this moment. But just to resist it for the sake of resisting it isn't growth at
Hmm.
all, right? So let me offer up some additional thoughts around that
Please,
because it's
please.
here's what occurs to me is if we're asking ourselves that question, if I want to dissect it a little more, is um, reframe that change as an opportunity, not a threat.
Hmm.
And that's the biggest piece, right? When you're like, am I resisting this or am I facing it? And I think if the question is, I'm resisting it because I see it as a threat, that's a little bit of a flag to say, hold up, is it truly a threat or maybe it's an opportunity? So then that question becomes, what's one hidden benefit in this change or this situation that's in front of me? So in the case of like financial planning and retirement, maybe the potential opportunity or the benefit might be there could be lower fees. Maybe it's there are better investment choices. Maybe the new financial planner that you're working with might have a fresh perspective, Shannon,
Right.
right? Right? They could actually help you maximize retirement savings. It never hurts to get a fresh perspective.
Right.
No one's forcing you to make those changes, right? It's just like, hey, let me take one.
Well, and that goes, you should also be aligned. I mean, talking finances, you should also be aligned with the person. So whether you're going to counseling for something or you're working with financial professional,
Yeah.
you should be aligned, or they should be aligned with your goals and philosophies as well. So
Right.
one size does not fit all with any
Exactly.
profession.
Exactly. Right. Well, and that really also then speaks to surround yourself with people who can help.
Right.
Right. So even
Yeah.
if somebody new, and it goes back to we were talking a few moments ago about holding hands. We're
Hmm.
reaching out to people to help us navigate
Right.
something that is uncertain or something that is new. So
Yeah.
surround yourself with people who can help. And I think about firefighters too, is firefighters, you don't fight fires alone, right? You rely on
Hmm.
your crew
It's a
and the
team
same
sport.
approach, right? Yeah, your support, right? You use that same approach for your finances. So that means
Right.
yes, you're going to talk to somebody who understands finance, who
Hmm.
understands retirement. Um, and as you're mentioning, you want to make sure that you're aligned. That also means talking to your spouse or your partner to make sure you're aligned in
Right.
your financial and investments. Um, I
Well,
would
and
offer,
also, I mean, not to um, tout my horn here, but I mean, being working with the firefighters in this industry, I mean, I am familiar with their pension, with their drop, with their deferred comp, with what
yeah.
they need, going into retirement, how many years they need to work and when they can tap into that retirement. So it goes further than that, and the benefits that they have from their 457 deferred comp plan. I mean, so it goes
Yeah.
deeper than just choosing somebody who maybe you get along with as a financial advisor. It's also somebody who
Oh,
actually knows your business.
oh,
Um,
absolutely.
it's like having the medic come. or not come, depending on what your incident is with your emergency when you call 911, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
make sure you have the right people working for you and on your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Because when you say alignment, there's the interpersonal connection. You really want to feel safe and that you trust the other individual, but also that trust extends to a level of expertise. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where you want to fill in the blanks. I mean, if your house is on fire, you're going to call a firefighter to help put it out because they
Right.
have the expertise
Right. And the tools.
and right, and the tools way better than your
Hopefully.
garden hose, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's you've given us a lot, or me a lot to think about. It always goes, that's one of the things that I always say, is it goes back to your mindset, your personality, your thought process in your
Yeah.
philosophy of saving, your philosophy of spending. It's not just about putting the dollars in the bank.
Yeah. So true,
So,
right? It's kind of like shifting that mindset from like I don't know to I can learn,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then again, go right back to like the growth. Let's tie that growth mindset in. That is the growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
You train in small steps. You don't do anything, make that big change overnight. You do one little thing at a time. So, what is the very next step that's necessary?
Yeah.
You
Well, and we
know,
don't know what we don't know. So, but sometimes we don't even know what to ask. And
yeah,
so, I mean, that's why
yeah.
I continue. I feel like I spend more time learning than even working with individual clients half the time, because I don't want to give any erroneous advice. So this is constantly your industry, my industry, firefighters industry. I mean, we're always learning more, because if we just knew what was going on 10 years ago or yesterday, we're not going to be able to help our clients into the
Mhm.
future.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And I think about the firefighters in particular, and um, because we're always training for something, right? We're always trying to learn something, addressing a change. I just want to say firefighters train, they adapt, they learn to overcome challenges every single day, right?
mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing when they're not fighting fires. They're working and training for the next emergency that occurs. And so as a firefighter, really give yourself some props. Like, you can handle change, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is just a new type of challenge,
Yeah.
right? And
Well,
so,
and you should put yourself in a position to benefit from all your hard work for
oh,
for all the
yeah.
years.
Well, absolutely, right. And don't be afraid of that change when it comes to your finances, because as I'm talking to firefighters, or if I were
Right.
to talk to
Right.
firefighters, like you followed that career, that profession, to protect,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're serving not just the community, but you're also protecting the community. And your financial plan and what your strategy is for retirement, that's a way to protect not just yourself but your family. And so you're
Right.
still protecting. It's just a different sort of approach or challenge or situation. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's still about protection, and
Yeah.
that's what they do best.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
All right.
Well, as always, I love talking to you, Jen.
I love talking to you too, Shan.
Yes. I appreciate you taking the time to give your insight on this topic, as well as
Yeah.
just sharing what we can do to communicate better with each other, being each other firefighters and financial advisors and counselors, right? You're not a
Absolutely.
counselor, but you know what I mean.
I
So,
know. I
thank
know.
you for taking the time, Jen. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
this has been Jenna Stoliker, and where can they find you?
They can find me at jennastoliker.com.
Okay,
And
easy enough.
that's, yeah, right. Just go there. You can kind of see what my leadership coaching style approach is all about, and how I work with leaders and help them navigate a changing world.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, thank you for joining me on this episode of Compounding Change. Remember, big results come from small, consistent actions. Until next time, take care, keep moving forward, and let's keep building a life filled with better health, wealth, and purpose. See you soon.
This has been the Compounding Change Podcast with Shannon Davis. If you are a firefighter or first responder, you know that change happens fast. Life changes, finance changes, compounding change. Shannon Davis is a certified retirement counselor who understands the needs of Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters members. Click on daviscompoundingchange.com to learn more. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to daviscompoundingchange.com or this podcast. Please note that investment involves risk and no statements made in this recording are indicative of future performance. The Compounding Change Podcast is brought to you by Shannon Davis.